don't you give Dolly Clackett a ring?
Thursday nights are a time for secrets in Revelations. Charlie, in love with a man who loves another. Gabriel, her brother, who lives a double life. And their father, the bishop, with the darkest secret of all. The Revelations continue tonight at 10:40 on Carlton.
Britain's badger woman earned her title caring for badgers for 30 years. Her story is told in Survival next.
Life is a journey.
How are you feeling?
I don't want to be a burden to my friends, to you. But for the moment, I'm coping very well.
You're a stubborn oafo.
I know.
She's a brave woman.
Yes, she is.
A Journey ends in peak practice. Tuesday at 9 on Carlton.
Itchy, flaky scalp. Relieved by T-Gel. Treat your scalp without mistreating your hair.
People talk about the mysteries of the East. It's nonsense. Take this Oriental Stir Fry. You can use all sorts of fresh ingredients. And for the perfect mixture of authentic herbs and spices, again, no mystery. Knorr Oriental Stir Fry cubes. Simply add to the pan and coat the ingredients. And 3 minutes later, a delicious aromatic stir fry. And finally, why is a French chef making Chinese food? Again, no mystery. Knorr, they've got the know-how.
If you have trouble sleeping from time to time, try new Medinex nighttime syrup. Medinex will help you quickly slide into a deep, refreshing sleep. So you'll wake up next morning ready for a brand new day. New Medinex, a better sleep for a brighter morning.
Last year, all 10 of the top 10 weekday dramas were on one station. Carlton, bringing you the best.
Well, tonight at 9 here on Carlton, we've crime drama in 99 to 1, starring Leslie Grantham as undercover cop Mick Rayner. But now, the last in the present series of Survival.
Oh, badger. What's he been doing? At this time of year, they will be in gardens.
Eunice Overend is a zoologist who has devoted much of her long life to one particular species.
So, he may go.
Eunice is a leading authority on badgers and has become known affectionately as Britain's badger woman.
Nuisance, aren't you?
At any one time, Eunice may share her caravan and garden with half a dozen or more young badgers. These are not pets, but wild animals that are being raised and then allowed to find their own way, in their own time, back into the wild. For Eunice's 4 dogs, that day can't come soon enough. Badgers are shy creatures that only venture from their sets in the evening and early morning, and normally shun any form of contact with man. Sadly, the only glimpse most people get of one is as a crushed corpse on the side of the road.
Was it doing anything when you were here? Because it's obviously dead now.
No, it hasn't moved since I've been here.
Many badgers fall victim to road traffic, especially in the spring, when males regularly patrol their territorial borders, which often take them along or across roads. Once aware of the casualty, the local police wildlife liaison officer informs the local badger group. For Eunice and her colleagues, the death of this animal is not a complete waste. It will be examined to help build up a picture of the health and structure of the local badger community. Eunice often cares for cubs left orphaned by such accidents.
I managed to get a badger cub from somebody who rescued them from diggers and hand-reared them, and she had several, and bottle rearing them's a bit of a time-consuming, so she let me have one. And ever since then, this was back in the 1960s when it was legal to do that, I have had badger cubs. To begin with, they were advertised in the Exchange and Mart, and I bought them, and they stayed with me for a year, and they went when it suited them to go, and a year seemed the right time. Now, since 73, of course, they're not allowed to be bought and sold, but I've had orphans. Badgers tend to get run over, and there's orphan cubs left about. And so between now and then, I've really never been out of contact with them. I've never turned them out. Badgers are very territorial, and they fight, and so any badger that somebody thinks the nice wild badgers will look after and lets it go in a field will be killed by the wild badgers, almost certainly. But if they've got a home they can come back to, and if they go out and get in a fight and come running home, after a while they get to know the wild badgers know them, and then they can safely go off. Sow badgers usually go after about a year. Boar badgers take a bit longer because, of course, there's more pressure, there's more fighting. They usually go the spring when they're getting on for 18 months old. I lived in Yorkshire. I had some cousins who were a bit older than me, who were very good on wild animals and birds. I remember watching the mowing, the old-fashioned mower as it is nowadays, and picking up the poor little mice in the grass, that the mowing grass that the blade had caught with their little nests there, and cuddling them up when I was quite small before I went to school. And when I came to look them up, of course, that nests made them into harvest mice, but the books said there weren't any harvest mice in Yorkshire. And then, relatively recently, since then, of course, they've discovered that there are harvest mice in Yorkshire as well. So I knew them a long time ago.
Today, harvest mice hold as much fascination for Eunice as they did over 65 years ago in her Yorkshire home. For the past 8 years, she has lived just outside the picturesque village of Castle Combe in Wiltshire. The village is a regular holder of the title Britain's Prettiest Village. Although badgers are her first love, Eunice is interested in all aspects of natural history. The local wildlife flourishes in the picture postcard setting. Otters now once again frequent the quieter areas of the local rivers, such as the Bybrook, thanks to a reintroduction scheme. Otters disappeared from here years ago, but a captive-bred pair, released by Eunice in 1989, are doing well and have produced cubs. They feed on a wide variety of fish, amphibians, and aquatic invertebrates. They particularly relish eels, and a crustacean that's also being eagerly sought by conservationists.
Ever so pleased to see the red, the signal crayfish, because I've known the ordinary ones for years and years since I was at school. Never seen the others before.
Yes, the
The signal crayfish, of course, is a recent...
The British crayfish is gradually being replaced in much of its habitat in southern England by an alien invader. The American signal crayfish was introduced in the mid-70s, both direct from the USA and via Europe, where it's already common. It has reddish claws and is larger than its local counterpart, and although good to eat, is more aggressive than our native species, and is becoming the dominant species in these small rivers.
Years ago.
Just how fast this is happening is the subject of ongoing research by the National Rivers Authority. Here, the British crayfish is just about holding its own, as this female, laden with eggs, indicates. Although both species spend much of the day hiding under stones, this doesn't prevent the otter from hunting them out by rolling over the rocks. Salisbury Plain is only a stone's throw away from Eunice's home, and a regular haunt for her and the dogs. This gently rolling countryside is rich in plant and animal life. For Eunice, this isn't just a casual stroll in the fresh air. For many years, Eunice has been a member of a conservation team advising the Ministry of Defence, who use large tracts of this area. Military ranges such as this often provide a vital haven for wildlife, and Salisbury Plain is no exception. The temporary puddles and tank tracks are one of the last British strongholds of the fairy shrimp. These inch-long crustaceans thrive here, but will perish when the pools dry out in the summer. But their eggs can survive dehydration for years and will hatch the next time they're submersed in water. The fairy shrimp is a protected species, although there's little chance they'll be disturbed by the public here. But the fence is not much of a barrier to the local wildlife, even if they have to dig their way under it. Badgers are common here, and Eunice has been studying the local population for many years. A mixture of peanuts and treacle is ambrosia for a badger, and Eunice mixes spoonfuls of it with bright yellow plastic pellets, which she hides around the set. It will soon be found and eaten by the badgers.
Look, that's the yellow one there. No, leave it alone, adult.
The badgers use their dung to mark out territorial boundaries, and the yellow pellets are easily visible. Eunice uses this information to build up a picture of the home range of badgers from a particular set. By leaving out the tasty mixture marked with different coloured plastic cubes at different sets, in this case blue, it's possible to map out the limits of the area that one particular group of badgers use for feeding. The badgers' boundaries are clearly defined and rarely overlap with the neighbours. For many years, Eunice's main interest has been the badger's relationship with cattle, bovine tuberculosis, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food.
You wouldn't think there was a connection between cattle and badgers. Unluckily there is, and it's the disease tuberculosis, TB. Now, you can test cattle and kill the ones that are positives, and keep the others and compensate the farmer. And that worked beautifully because 50 years ago about 40% of cattle were infected, which is a lot. It's got down now to about 1,000th of that. So it's nearly gone, but not quite. Now, it's been down at that level since the 1960s, and they just couldn't get the last bit to go. They didn't know why. But in 1971, they found a badger that was infected, so they thought, we have the answer. Well, we must eradicate it in badgers too. But as there was no way of telling whether a badger had TB or not until it was dead, they undertook killing badgers.
The ministry's badger-killing program has been in operation for over 25 years. At first, they were snared and then gassed inside their sets, so no bodies were available for post-mortem. Since then, the ministry have trapped and then shot the badgers. Some badgers, which merely harboured tuberculosis but escaped the trapping, often became infectious because the stress of losing family members and leaving the set can reactivate the dormant disease. It also turned out that the test for the disease in cattle can sometimes miss infected animals.
Another problem that's cropped up, of course, is that deer are susceptible, and nobody quite knows how much wild deer are involved in this. Then anything you do against badgers is not going to do any good, is it? So it needs some other approach.
It has also been suggested that the patchiness of the distribution of tuberculosis in Britain may be linked to the presence or absence of certain soil microbacteria, which may improve or reduce immunity to the disease. For the past few years, Eunice and her colleague Dr. Helen Donoghue from University College London have been taking soil and water samples from the local farm where badgers and cattle mix freely. It's from one of these microbacteria that the scientists have developed a vaccine to fight the disease. The human version is on test worldwide, and the trials on the badger vaccine are looking very promising. The badgers can be persuaded to eat the capsule by coating it in chocolate, mixing them with peanuts, and leaving them close to the set.
Now, leading from that, the human vaccine that's been made, the conservationist paid for a badger vaccine to be developed from this, which our Ministry of Agriculture wouldn't allow to be used in this country, and is undergoing a small-scale trial in Ireland, which is going very promisingly. So we would like a proper large-scale trial in England, which would produce statistically sound results. But of course, the real answer in the long run is going to be the same vaccine developed for cattle, because if cattle are getting it from cattle and from badgers and from deer, you can't kill everything, and the only answer is going to be to prevent the cattle from developing it. So a cattle vaccine should be the next move.
In the meantime, the badgers are still getting the blame for all cattle tuberculosis, and the badger killing program looks set to continue, despite frequent reviews. Not all badgers trapped by the ministry are destined to be destroyed. For many years, they've been trying to discover just how badgers might infect cattle so they can advise the farmers and break the chain of infection. The badgers are caught overnight, and then brought in large numbers to the mobile laboratory. There, they're anaesthetised, weighed and marked. They're all processed within a few hours. Urine, fluid from the lungs and blood samples are then taken and analysed. Badgers which may be infected with TB but not transmitting it are impossible to detect. Only when they become infectious does it become possible to find the disease in the animal's urine and lung fluids. One thing they have discovered is that the disease is in a balance and doesn't seem to be spreading. Any lactating females are given priority, so their cubs are not left alone in the set for too long. The blood samples will be used, among other things, for DNA analysis and will help to build up a genetic picture of the badger population. The badgers quickly recover from their examination. Once the badgers have fully recovered, they're taken back to exactly the same spot where they were trapped. The badgers appear none the worse for their experience, and most of them have returned several times to the peanut-baited traps during the many years the research has been running. Their minor discomfort may help to save their own lives, as well as those of many other badgers in the future. Eunice has many other interests and talents. Her intimate knowledge and love of badgers is evident in her sketches. It's a talent she could so easily have turned to commercial gain, but instead, just a few friends benefit from her ability. As well as badgers, foxes often feature in her art, because at home, she's surrounded by them. Eunice feeds the local wild foxes on scraps of fat and any dead birds and other animals she finds on the local roads. Her badgers see it as a chance to exercise their short but powerful limbs and chase the foxes away from the food. Dawn is a noisy time in the heart of the countryside. Eunice is up with the birds and takes a delight, as many people do, in watching their antics at the peanut feeder. Unfortunately, badgers are no respecters of private property. Outside at the feeder, the birds have been chased away. Exit the great tits and enter the brown rats. They use the fence as a convenient ladder to reach the free supply of nuts. The badgers are enjoying a free supply of icing sugar and oats, as Eunice sits transfixed by the new visitors. But all animals are welcome here. Eunice has devoted the past 30 years of her life to the welfare of Britain's badgers. Like many other people, and indeed the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, her hope is that one day there will be a solution to the badger and cattle tuberculosis problem that will satisfy both conservationists and farmers. Through her efforts, that day may be a little closer.
Tony and the others.